countries ensure that there is no undue delay in the projects. The measures are taken to ensure the safety of the workers. When the pandemic situation improved, we had special flights coming from China to bring the workers back, and special efforts were made that all projects, ongoing projects, should be completed in time. So this is the value of this very important project was once again showed during the COVID-19 pandemic also. Now, KP is, of course, a very important element part of the CPEC. It is, as Hassan Saab was mentioning, it is the now hub of economic activity. It is the launching pad to Central Asian countries. The CPEC corridor is going through the KP province. One of the flagship projects is the Karakoram Highway, which I think it starts from KP onwards to China. So in the projects, Suki Kenari hydropower project is based in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And one of the most important projects in the CPEC is the Rashakai SEZ, which is the first SEZ which has been being built and developed under the SSE's overall nine SSE's plan. So we are very looking forward to this early completion of this SSE, which in my view, would set a trend, would be a trendsetter for the development of other special economic zones. On the bilateral trade front, I may share with the participants some good news that, of course, China is Pakistan's largest trading partner and also the largest source of investment. In last year, despite the pandemic, Pakistan's exports to China almost remained the same than the last year. But the good thing was that Pakistan's exports to China increased almost by 18%, And if we look at the second half of the last year and compare the figures to 2019, the increase is almost more than 40%. And of course, today I was discussing with the Commercial Councillor Badr also, that this is a very good trend which we are seeing in the last 4 or 5 months, a very strong increase in Pakistan's exports to China. And there are, of course, the sectors which are some are very new sectors and maybe of interest to KP government also, like in the mineral sectors, copper, cement clinker, aluminium, lead. These are very new sectors which are seeing a very strong increase in the recent years. One element which is contributing to this increase is China-Pakistan FTA, and the second phase of it, which was launched early last year. And under this FTA, after the second phase, now almost 1,000 tariff lines are enjoying duty-free access to China market. So that represents thousands and thousands of products, because under one tariff line, there could be 10, 20, 30 different products. So there are so many opportunities in the mineral sector, in the agro-food area, for sports goods, in the leather sector, and many other sectors, which of course we would like to share with you. Hassan Daud Saab, I've asked Badr to share these new sectors, emerging sectors, which you can look into, share this information with your chambers in the province. In fact, I would like to propose that we should have a very specific webinar between the embassy, our 4 consulate journals, and the chambers, and the KP-BOIT board, and on this topic of improving of trade and new opportunities in the bilateral trade between our 2 countries. So we would certainly like to do that. Coming to the role of the KP and the Board of Investment, I would say that it is like to convey our deep appreciation for a very active role that you have been playing for promoting these trade and investment linkages with China. And I'm very glad, as I mentioned, Hassan Daud Saab, that you are there, and of course, under the leadership of the Chief Minister and Finance Minister Jhagra Saab, I think this KP is now very well placed to play a very robust role to not only to realize the real potential of the Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is very blessed with resources, and explore win-win opportunities with the Chinese investors and enterprises. And I know that I was not here in 2017. KP had an investment roadshow just before the first Belt and Road Forum also. And we hope that as soon as the pandemic situation improves, we would like to welcome such a delegation from KP again to China. As I mentioned, that Russia-Kai SEZ has become a very important for Chinese investors. I've been meeting with many of them in the recent months. They are all very keen, looking forward to its development. I would request that if we can, some attractive brochures can be made about the Russia-Kai SEZ in Chinese language, and if they can be shared with the mission, so that we can promote this SEZs within Chinese investors and enterprises. And I'm sure that with this development of this SEZ, it will become an island of excellence for other important areas in KP like Nushaira, Hattar, Bardan, and DI Khan. And also I would like to place on record our appreciation for the very enterprising people of KP who have been coming to China for since many years and contributing to this very relations, especially the traders who are based in the provinces of Yiwu and Zhejiang province. They are there and they are very, very popular and contributing to this friendship, very important friendship. And I'm also very glad that the board is also providing a one window service to the Chinese investors, especially from China. And in my all introductions, they have been praising the role of the board and the government of KP has done for the Chinese investors. And I was also happy to know that recently the government decided to open up for the Chinese travelers to come to KP government. I think that will help in showcasing the KP's strength to foreign investors, including the Chinese. Let me mention in the end few sectors, very important sectors. Hassan Daud Saab, you asked that if we can identify some of the important sectors which I feel are the strength of the province also, and where we can have opportunities within China also. Tourism, I am very passionate about tourism. In my last capacity as ambassador to France also, we launched a tourism initiative in Paris also. And I'm very happy that KP's tourism board or department was one of the most, I would say, proactive role played by them in our initiative. Similarly, we are doing it here also. We are launching a tourism initiative and trying to attract Pakistan and Pakistani provinces for the Chinese tourists. We are launching a tourism website in Chinese language. We are opening an office in the embassy, and we are going to participate in various tourist exhibitions in China. And we would like to welcome the KP government and the tourist board to join hands with us in this. One area is important as part of our strategy is investments from China into our tourist industries for developing tourist resorts. KP, as we know, is blessed by landscapes, natural landscapes. One of the breathtaking landscapes that we have are in KP. So we would like to I've seen your website. You have listed some of the projects in 3-4 projects. So I think mountain tourism development, some ski resorts, and adventure tourism, for example, medium range hotels, motels across province. That is some area that we can work together. So I would request that if some specific projects in that area, if that can be shared with us, then we can be able to make an outreach to Chinese investors. Agriculture, extremely important area for the two countries. In fact, we have a joint working group under CPAC for agricultural cooperation. There's a plan of action and a number of projects are being discussed. And I have noted that agriculture and livestock is also a very important sector for KP also. In fact, if I may mention that food and agro products have seen a tremendous increase in interest in China. So this could be an area where we can work together, and province and traders can link with the Chinese traders to bring more value addition, of course, to the agricultural products either in the livestock or dairy or meat or poultry sectors also. Mines and minerals, as I mentioned earlier, it's a very growing area for our trade and investments also. Since KP is rich in mineral resources, we can look into the development of mineral industry in KP. I don't know whether chromite, the important items that we have seen where the growth was there was chromite, nephrite, jade, zinc, lead, precious stones, onyx, marble. So these are very important. I think KP has rich resources, mineral resource in this area. So we can, I think, discuss cooperation in this area. Forestry and timber. Prime Minister's first program of 10 billion tsunami tree project was started from KP. It was a flagship project, a great success story, and was praised all around the world by World Bank, by UN institutions also. And I think China is one of the largest importer of timber and wood, straw and pulp, and also the furniture also. So I think when this resource grows in our country, grows in the province, we will be able to bring more raw material as well as value-added goods to China. I may mention here that we have rather some of the Chinese and Pakistani traders and exporters have established a number of Pakistani pavilions across China. One is in Yiwu, one is being established in Shanghai, one was established last month in Qingdao, a very important city. One we are discussing with Nanning, and shortly one will be established in Urumqi by a very enterprise Chinese businessman who has a long association in Pakistan. So these pavilions are very good platforms for showcasing Pakistani products and KP products. So I would encourage the Hassan Saab aapko please try to encourage your traders to send your signature goods for display in these centers, so which will help in development of the bilateral trade. Health sector, you also mentioned after COVID-19 pandemic, this has become a very important sector, and some of the Chinese pharmaceutical health related to manufacturers are keen to establish and invest in Pakistan, in KP province. TCM, traditional Chinese medicines, as part of this also, they are very keen to come and collaborate with Pakistani investors here. I have, I think one last thing which I would like to mention, which is a very growing industry, is e-commerce. China, as you know, is the largest country in the world in e-commerce platform. Last year, they had an e-commerce business of $1.8 trillion, which was more than the combined business done in USA and Europe combined. So some of our traders are now using Chinese platform to sell their products. But I think this is an area should be of interest to Pakistani and KP traders. And I have asked Badr to organize a webinar to educate and to raise awareness about these platforms among our traders. We would welcome KP Board of Investment and Trade to be part of that seminar. So finally, thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to share some of my views. Sky is the limit as I think as far as investment relations and trade relations between KP and China is concerned. But I can assure you that you can consider the embassy and all our 4 consulate generals as your own office. We will be very ready to support you fully and facilitate this relationship between China and KP. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, sir. I think whatever you've said are like instructions for us, and Badr is an old friend and we worked together. I was also lucky to be the project director for CPEC for 5 years, so that gave me a good stepping stone for Rashaka. We were able to, now Rashaka is all set. We're waiting for a day to be confirmed for its groundbreaking, but one Chinese enterprise, the Century Steel, has already started its work, and we are expecting a lot of more activity, a lot of excitement here in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. The other thing, sir, we are working on is on the border post at Torkham, and also we are setting up border bazaars in not just in Torkham but also in Chitral, which is a very promising area, not just for tourism but also for mines and metals. Just yesterday we had a meeting on the tourism sector and also marble as part of the federal government's economic outreach, and on Thursday we'll have a following meeting to that. Your instructions for the webinar, sir, we are more than happy to not just to coordinate but work. We can get people from the private sector as well as from the public sector. I will coordinate with Badr, and inshallah we will have a very good as per your directions and also as per your expectations. On 4th we are having investment conference here in Peshawar, and about 25 Chinese companies have already registered for that. Last but not the least, I know you have a busy schedule, but I would request you to stay for another 5 to 6 minutes. I would like to play a short video, and why I'm being selfish in playing this video is that I made this during COVID restrictions based on my own experience of the Shanghai Expo. So I saw a video there, and based on that I made this. And also lastly, sir, we were working on an event in Beijing in the palace for showcasing our tourism and also the Buddha Trail. So if you could direct your team along with us, we can again start working on as soon as the travel restrictions are lifted. So, sir, with this, I would, and also before I invite my friend and colleague, Mr. Kiyoshi from the Asian Development Bank, I would like to play a short 2 minutes video showcasing on where we are, where we want to be, and what are our plans or vision of our leadership, as I said, both political and administrative, to reach there. So, Abdurrahman, please play that video.
Thank you.
Loud. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. And with this, I would now invite my friend and a great supporter of Pakistan, Mr. Kayoshi. He's a principal economist of Pakistan in the resident mission of Asian Development Bank since August 2019. And when I met him first time in his office, I asked him for his support to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And as I've learned that, ADB operations in Pakistan will increase significantly in next 3 years with continued focus on energy, natural resources, urban development, transport infrastructure, institutional reform, and re-engagement in education and health. So this is all what Khyber Pakhtunkhwa wants. This is all what Khyber Pakhtunkhwa needs. So with this, I would now request Kayoshi for your kind words, and also please do advise us on areas where you find us lagging so that we can improve and be competitive. I would just like to highlight one thing, that Khyber Pakhtunkhwa is working on certain policy reforms, and as part of that, I was responsible as the team lead for the industrial policy that has been recently approved. And what we are trying to have is incentives that are competitive, that are non-discriminatory. Those are back-loaded in front of front-loaded, because cost of land sometimes becomes an issue when it comes to the industrial development in regions like Pakistan. And with this said, we are looking at support of uh, organizations like yours and IFC, and I know Charles would be speaking a little later. So with this, I request you, Kayoshi, for your kind words, and thank you for your participation.
Thank you, Hassan Daud. And I want to make a very short presentation. So do you hear presentation? Do you see a presentation?
Yes, sir, I can see your presentation.
Okay, so just recently in January, ADB board approved ADB's country partnership strategy 2021 to 2025 for Pakistan. And then I led the team, and then I just want to briefly touch on our strategy for Pakistan next 5 years. So in this diagram, we are showing the right-hand side. We are showing the GDP growth. And as you can see, 2020 was pandemic hit, the bad year, the contraction of GDP by 0.4%. But then we are expecting the coming back of the GDP growth over 2021 to the medium term. And then we give good credits to the government reactions to the pandemic. The government of Pakistan invested 1.2 trillion rupees for the relief package. And then ADB, World Bank, IMF, we took some part of this relief package, providing emergency loans. And also last week, the IMF at the staff level agreement reached. So the second to fifth tranche will be provided soon. And then we are told the sixth tranche discussion with IMF will continue in this year. And then this diagram, left-hand side, we are showing current account deficit and also the fiscal account deficit. And then as you can see, the fiscal account deficit is continuous over decades, but we give a credit to IMF toward the end of 2019, and then also the 2020, before the pandemic hit. Actually, the fiscal balance gets improved. And then before the pandemic hit, primary balance is surplus, so which is a very good thing. And then right-hand side, as you can see, the public debt has been increasing. And then the percentage of the GDP, it hits to 87.2% in 2020. But then, as you can see a bar chart, the majority of debt is sourced domestically, which means economic growth can pay off the debt. There's some increase in the external debt, foreign source debt, but increment is not as sharp. So in this sense, public debt is a concern, but it gives a very stable outlook to a medium term. So we listed three large categories of the structural challenges. One is economic mismanagement, including the tax administration, public debt, low exports, very limited financial markets. And then another category is a lack of resilience, which is represented by a poor human capital development. And then the last pillar is the private sector competitiveness. And then we have energy insufficiencies, poor urban services, and insufficient connectivities. And then in the CPS, we identify those three categories of the challenges as the areas we, ADB, will engage in next 5 years. So this framework shows those three strategic pillars. Strategic pillar one is a macroeconomic stabilization, and also the PSE reform, tax reform, energy sector reform. Strategic pillar two, we build resilience by investing through education, health, food security, clean water, and also the affordable housing. And the strategic pillar three is the private sector competitiveness, and then we invest in the connectivity, access to finance, rural infrastructure, and so forth. And then from here, we will be touched on the little bit about the investment and also the FDI. And then left-hand side panel, as you can see, the investment rate in selected Asian countries, Pakistan is actually one of the lowest in terms of the percentage of GDP. So the investment rate has been low compared to peer economies. And then if you see foreign direct investment, and then there's the ups and downs, and then somewhere around 2009, there's a peak, but still it's been cyclical, and then also it's been low. And then there's some good stories in terms of the privatization. So deregulation of telecommunications and the privatization of PTCL, these are considered as a good example. And then also the auctioning of banking licenses, privatization of the state banks. Those increase investment, and then those privatization affects the private sector in a positive way. And then we want to see more on these examples. And then if you look at the source of FDI, and then it's been stable. On the left-hand side pie chart, you can see the 27% Europe, 20% North America, East Asia, 20%. And then this is a lot to do with the Chinese investment in recent years. And then if you look at the sector, also these sectors are fairly fixed. So extractive industries, communication, financial business, power, food, manufacturing, and so forth. And then the market should be more dynamic. And then the source of FDI in terms of region and share of FDI in terms of the sectors should be more diversified and more dynamic. And then left-hand side panel, it shows the rate of investment and real interest rate. And the blue line, green line, those are really independent. And then this is bad. It really implies the banking sector is not immediately to investment. Interest rate is not a signal for the investment. So this really shows the inefficiency of the banking sector. And then banking sector has to give credits to the firms which demand those credits. And then if you see a B, only 36% of bank lending goes to private sector. And then the 64%, more than majority, goes to a government sector. So this donut chart showing the public sector dominates the banking sector, and then the private sector does not have any access or limited access to the bank credits. And then the C, as you can see, 8% of SME only has access to the private sector, the credit. And then the majority, the vast majority, over 90% of the credit goes to non-SME sectors. So even though SME sector is the engine of the growth of the private sector, but if you look at the banking access, then SMEs do not have any access or severely limited access to the banking credit. And then this graph shows the remittances inflow of comparison between 2019 and 2020. And then as you can see, overall, actually the remittances inflow increased by 30% in 2020 compared to 2019. And then this is quite surprising and counterintuitive facing the pandemic. And then if you look at the Pakistan, this is actually second highest compared to Bangladesh, which really means Pakistan is really doing well in terms of receiving remittances, which is good for the current account balance, which is good for the foreign reserves. And then we are thinking, listing many reasons why this happened. And then suddenly the people might have come back to Pakistan, but also we give credits to the government and also the central bank. They try to make easier for people to send money back to Pakistan. And then this is a great opportunity for the investors or the private sector companies. There are credits within the country, and then this is the untapped potential, yet the private sector can look forward in the future. So concluding my talk with the challenges FDI is facing. Number one, still Pakistan is facing a poor risk assessment. And then there's the rating companies, risk rating for Pakistan is still low. And then this needs to be improved before the foreign companies wants to invest in the country. The second one is weak political stability. So I accept everybody has a different political opinions, and then everybody supports in the different political issues. But if the government is not stable and then there are too many political challenges, it is detrimental to the private sector investment. And also the government, federal government, and also the provincial government, they have to work on the inconsistent policies. And then the policies will create the enabling environment for the private sectors to play. And then if the federal level and provincial level have discrepancies in terms of the investment policies, then this is difficult. And also this touch on the tax issues as well. So these issues needs to be rectified, and then the provincial government needs to work on the areas where the provincial government can work on. Then still Pakistan is perceived as a difficult business environment. And then the World Bank's doing business indicators improved, but still it is room for improvement. And then there are many areas the Pakistan can work on. And then this is something the policy makers or the Board of Investment can pressure the government to improve the business environment. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kailash. I think the points that you've highlighted, the government, the good thing is, and the good news is that the government is cognizant of most of them. Just before this event, I was chairing a meeting of all the regulatory reforms stakeholders, including the chamber. And hopefully by April, we should be able to work on our deregulatory framework and also look at possibilities where there are duplications, where there are redundant rules and regulations, and which makes the process cumbersome. So I'm trying my best, and also my leadership, both political and administrative, is working on this. We're doing our due diligence. The other thing that I would like to highlight is that since we have identified the key sector, including tourism, we are now working closely with the federal government to actually work on the risk assessment, and also work on Pakistan being a good place for investment, and create that pull factor by doing our hand holding. So I would request, Keoshi, when your travel restrictions are lifted, please come to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Board of Investment, and we would like to highlight and showcase some of the projects that we are working on. On Thursday, we have a meeting on economic outreach, especially on sectors including tobacco, including medical tourism, which we are trying to now promote so that we can generate not only revenue, which certainly we like, but also create employment opportunities through, as an incremental process, through a small scale industry graduating to large scale industry and manufacturing. So I'm happy to report all this, but more I would like to share when you visit. And also I would request all the participants, if you have any questions, you can share with the chat box, and we will also ask the relevant. And also on my capacity as Board of Investment, I would like to answer those queries. Before I move to my good friend and old friend, Suleiman Mehdi, who is the chairman of Pakistan Stock Exchange, I would like to play a short video, and as per the directions and instructions of our ambassador in Beijing, it has subtitles in Chinese. So this is about Rashakai, which is the main showcase project as far as CPEC Industrial Corporation is concerned.
Rashakai Special Economic Zone, RSEZ, is a prioritised project for industry and zone cooperation under CPEC. It attracts high attention of both Chinese and Pakistani governments, and it will play a leading role in industrial cooperation between China and Pakistan. The concession agreement of RSEZ was signed with the presence of Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan and Chinese Premier Li Keqiang during the Second Belt and Road Forum on 28th of April 2019. On the 26th of May 2019, Chinese Vice President Wang Qishan and Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan jointly unveiled the plaque for the RSEZ project. Rashakai's Special Economic Zone is 60 kilometers away from Peshawar, the capital city of KP province, and 90 kilometers away from Islamabad. M1, the motorway beside RSEZ, connects Peshawar and Islamabad and the two international airports. RSEZ goes 800 kilometers to the north by Karakoram motorway to Kunjurub Pass. It's only 5 kilometers away from ML1 railway line, which goes directly to Karachi port. The transportation is very convenient. CRBC has been operating in Pakistan for 30 years. It has built many infrastructure projects with significance, including the Karakoram motorway, the realignment of Atabad Barrier Lake project. RSEZ is jointly developed and operated by CRBC and KP-BOIT. It covers an area of 4 square kilometers and will be developed in 3 phases. The total investment is estimated at about $130 million. Based on the local resources and market conditions, RSEZ will be built into a comprehensive special economic zone, characterized with international wholesale market, logistics, high-end industrial park and high-tech park. In addition, to meet the production need of the zone enterprises and their daily consumption, executive apartments, star-rated hotels, shopping mall, hospital, international school, and one window service building will be established. Apart from the basic facilities such as adequate supply of water, power, and gas. The leading industries are composed of agricultural products processing, home appliances, furniture and building materials, electric vehicles, automobile and the accessories, new energy, textile and garment, biomedicine, etc. After completion of the project, a modern industrial park will be established with estimated annual output around $1 billion and 30,000 jobs will be provided. To create a better business environment for the zone enterprises, all the import duties and VAT on the imported machinery will be exempted from the zone enterprises. The zone enterprises will be also exempted from corporate income tax for 10 years, counting from their commercial production. The purchased plot can be used for up to 99 years, and instalments are available for the plot payment. Furthermore, one window service will provide more convenience to the zone enterprises in business registration, taxation, customs, commodity inspection and administrative approvals. Meanwhile, both Chinese and Pakistani governments are working on more preferential policies to vigorously support the development of RSEZ. As the pivotal node to advance CPEC towards development with higher quality, RSEZ will work together with Gwadar Port and Gwadar Free Trade Zone and will become a critical junction of trade contacts and an industrial cooperation base between Pakistan and China, Pakistan and Middle East, Pakistan and West and Middle Asia. RSEZ will accelerate the process of improving Pakistan's industrialization level and lead CPEC towards the development with higher quality and higher level at the next stage. We are confident that RSEZ will open a new chapter in Pakistan in benefiting the two peoples and in deepening China-Pakistan friendship.
So thank you very much for allowing us to highlight the salient features in the Rashakai Special Economic Zone. I would now request my friend Mr. Salman, the president of Pakistan Stock Exchange, to actually highlight. But before he speaks, I would like to commend him for his excellent work in really taking Pakistan Stock Exchange to the level where it is. He has been instrumental in creating the kind of government business linkages and also bringing in new technologies and incorporating digitalization in his, not just in his sphere of work, but also recommending us certain activities that we would like to do. He's been actively engaged on strategy, merger and acquisitions, and a lot of great initiatives as part of his illustrious career. But I think I would let him speak, and his words of wisdom would actually highlight his acumen. So Salman, thank you very much, sir. It's an honor to have you here amongst us, and I would like to request you to please highlight a word of view about PSX, and also then how can PSX and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa Board of Investment and the government can work together, and how we can also fetch investment that you are actually attracting to your organization. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Hassan. It's been a very, very enlightening webinar so far. These videos were amazing, especially the presentation by a friend from Asian Development Bank, though he had to move very fast, but was a very informative presentation on the whole. So yes, very testing times, not only for Pakistan, but for the globe. Pakistan Stock Exchange has also been no exception. Only credit that I can take today on PSX behalf and the management is that despite COVID and massive lockdowns in all areas, one thing that we were successful in managing was that we kept the trading engine on. So there was no shutdown. All SOPs were in place and trading at the stock exchange was never stopped even for a minute. For that matter, even when we had a terrorist attack at the stock exchange, we kept our nerves strong and we kept the trading engine on. And that is the reason you see where our index is today. Because all those regional countries, those who have halted trading at the stock exchange, have seen severe battering in the form of foreign sell down. So again, a very interesting and an important subject today you've touched upon. COVID has changed lifestyles globally. We'd never heard of masks being a part of our daily attire. Industries, schools, restaurants, malls, all being locked down. Working from home being the new norm. And business without Zoom being impossible. The word negative being the most positive word. What a change. And of course, losing our loved ones untimely. With all the miseries from COVID and looking around the world, Pakistan has again proven to be a very resilient nation. And so has been our stock exchange that has done extremely well, both in terms of index appreciation and volumes. So to understand the larger impact of COVID in Pakistan versus the world, we can kind of break it into two phases. The first phase started in February 20, and being a novel pandemic virus, Pakistan also followed the world and went into a complete lockdown, and hence the industrial wheel came to a complete halt. In phase two, in June 2020, and after kind of having visibility on COVID cases and mortality rate versus the world, the government made a very smart move and initiated smart lockdowns and kept the industrial wheel open. The best move was slashing down the interest rate by 625 basis points in less than 4 months. And of course, I think this one factor has been the most important factor today on Pakistan's economic revival in these testing times. One must acknowledge the smart and proactive measures taken by the central bank in offering stimulus packages in the form of tough subsidized loans for employee retention, markup, principal deferment, and rescheduling. In all honesty, phase two, COVID, Pakistan has been a beneficiary. And I'll tell you how. It's been beneficiary at 3 different fronts. So if I give you an example of foreign remittances coming into Pakistan in the last 6 months, so our average foreign remittances were always around $1.9 to $2 billion a month. Now, since the world has gone into lockdown, the social spending all around the world has closed. The restaurants are closed, the malls are closed, everything is closed. So we have been receiving $2.2 billion a month in the last 6 months, and December was a great year when we got $2.4 billion. So if I add up all this additional remittance, it comes to $1.4 billion. It is primarily because of COVID. This is the social spending that has converted into savings and coming in the form of remittances to Pakistan. Now, the second benefit that we've had in this phase two of COVID has been complete lockdown of industries, especially in countries like Bangladesh and India. So today, when we speak to any of our textile players, like they've got orders packed all the way to December 31st, 2021. Now, because we kept our industries open, all these exports orders have diverted towards Pakistan, and especially in the textile sector. The third benefit is that there is very little motivation today for traveling abroad. As per Pakistani laws, there is a limit of $10,000 that you can carry when you travel abroad for vacations. So even a family of 4, when they travel, they can carry $40,000. Spending on credit cards is on top of it. So, that has also gone down and is helping preserve the foreign exchange reserves today. However, with the current vaccination spree and world going back to normal, these advantages won't be sustainable in the long run. So one has to think as to how to kind of make these benefits sustainable in the long run. One classic example is of the Rochelle digital account. It's a great initiative again by central bank, CDC, stock exchange, whereby your 7 million expats have started investing into your fixed income certificates. They can pay the electricity bills. They can invest into the stock market directly from home without even going to a bank. So RDA has again been a game changer. So the second benefit that we can avail, of course, I understand that these textile exports have been diverted to Pakistan today because of lockdown. But once India, Bangladesh, these markets are going to open, what one can start working from today is bringing the energy costs down and continue to provide good quality products. So even if you're able to kind of retain, say 50% of these exports order after the world opens, the sum is huge. So one of the most obvious factors that has emerged from COVID is the global supply chain disruption. Now, and here lies a very big opportunity for Pakistan to attract investment in industries from the world, and especially China. Since Pakistan has been the least affected, and for, of course, obvious reasons that the overall population is a young population, 60% are less than 30 years of age, our immunity levels are much higher because of our dietary habits, is to bring this all to our advantage, looking at the supply chain disruption and getting other industries from other regions like China shifted to Pakistan for export purpose only. Vietnam is a classic example, the way they have moved all the industries from China into Vietnam and have increased their exports. Now I'd just like to kind of touch a little bit about KP, because Hassan is there and he's a very dear friend, and I know there's a very dynamic team in place, especially him and the finance minister. I'm a great fan of both of these guys. So KP has the third largest provincial economy in Pakistan today, but yes, I think I was looking at some numbers, the growth rate has been on the lower end. Investment mobilization has not only been a challenge in Pakistan, but particularly for KP due to security challenges and political instability in Afghanistan. And that is something not very much in the hands of the KP government to control also. Peace and development goes hands in gloves. I think growth in KP can be catered by more financial support from the federal government, urban agglomeration, regional trade, remittances from abroad. Today, KP government for sure can attract investments in industry, construction, agriculture, livestock, mining, and tourism. I think all these investments can be managed through friendly private sector policies. Unfortunately, states don't realize this, that it is not their job to provide or create job. Their job is to just provide a congenial business and operating environment to the entrepreneurs to create jobs. Apart from the security challenges that KP faces today, the best part that I can say is that on the whole, the KP government enjoys a very good reputation today, and with concentrated efforts can easily roll out a public-private partnership model throughout the KP. One recommendation is that KP should also focus on modern methods of cultivation and farming and try to attract the corporate sector investment in farming. I think this can be a game changer, not only for KP, but for the entire Pakistan. Today, our crop yields are the lowest in the region. And for any developing country today, the biggest challenge is food insecurity. Also, with the hydel potential and low interest rates today, KP can initiate large-scale public energy and transport projects. I'll give you a classic example. So for the first time ever in the history of Pakistan, we have done a 200 billion rupees sukuk of Power Holding Limited, which is a government's power holding company. And just by bringing this entire bond sukuk on a book building mechanism, we have ended up saving 18 billion rupees over 10 years for the government and Ministry of Energy by just doing it through a book building process. So again, coming back, there is tremendous potential. Hassan, if you guys want to do any large scale public sector program, you just don't need to go for higher interest rates. You just don't need to go the traditional way. Just come to the stock exchange, get the book building done through your sukuks. Islamic banks are flooded with liquidity. You'll get the best pricing today. I think KP should also kind of, not only KP, but entire Pakistan should also focus on promoting the SME sector. More than 40% of the employment is created through the SME sector. And as one of the friends earlier mentioned that, they hardly have any access to the banks today. There's a documentation challenge also. So I think more focus should be given that. Again, housing is a very interesting sector. KP can do REIT projects, listed at the stock exchange. You get all the tax benefits till 2024. Focus on building up technology parks. I think as a nation also, we need to move out of focusing on textiles only. If we look around the IT exports of our regional counterparts, they're then running into hundreds of billions of dollars. And we're still kind of, on the technology side, we're trying to struggle around $2 billion of exports. So just to give you few recommendations in context that how PSX and how KP can play a role in overall improving the environment and attracting investment. So there is this concept of trading halls. So Pakistan Stock Exchange is actually housed in the heart of Pakistan, the city of Karachi. But then you really don't need to have another exchange. You can just have the concept of a trading hall created at KP in one of the urban centers. The concept is more not to kind of rope in money from KP. The concept is about visibility economics. Once they start looking at a trading platform or a trading hall available, this will attract companies, larger business houses from KPK to come and list at the stock exchange. The concept is very simple. Today, if you are a cement manufacturer and you are not listed at the stock exchange and you're earning 100 million rupees, your 100 million is 100 million. It cannot get a multiple of 10 or 15 or 20. So wealth creation cannot take place till the time you don't go in the public domain and then, kind of expand your businesses. Then I would suggest strongly that, KP government should go very aggressive on road shows. So once the pandemic settles down, of course, stock exchange is also not active at this front, but hopefully once we are over with this, I think international road shows are very important for the KP government to at least showcase their stories, to showcase the potential there. Another offer that was made earlier, and I would again say that come over to the Pakistan Stock Exchange for an investor presentation. I'll help tie up the 20 big business houses based out of Karachi. Just tell them what can you do for them. Just tell them what environment you can provide to them. And I think they will be excited looking at the overall reputation of the KP government today, which is fairly neat and clean to invest. My concluding view is that growth alone also in KP will not benefit the ordinary people of KP unless there is effort to kind of, promote inclusivity through investments in skill development, education, and health. Last thing, you see, as a nation, I think we have miserably failed in one area, and that is in documenting our success story. So, when you go to any good universities, we just have to talk about international examples. So my request to you would be that please start documenting all the successful entrepreneurs of your province. So their case studies can be, taught at these universities, and we have role models in the country. So with that, I'll conclude. Thank you, Hassan.
Salman, thank you very much. I think your recommendations are like policy documents for us. And to begin with, in no particular order, I would first work with my leadership on an investment roadshow at your good PSX. I also offer at this forum that you can set up a hall or an office of PSX here in my office. We can provide you the facility as a stepping stone, maybe for 6 months to 1 year. And you can, from there, actually, we need our companies to get listed with you. And that would actually be a promising way to move forward. Before I move to Charles and my friend Chuck here, I have few questions, and whether those were for the investor, but I think you're the commercial counselor and you're better placed to answer those questions. And also for Kiyoshi, we have few questions. Starting from Beijing. Sir, I have a question from Mr. Shehzad, who asks that there's a huge potential of e-commerce, and by leveraging the potential, because in 2019 we saw around 300 million of goods, works, and services exported through, or business done through, the e-commerce. So how can the e-commerce companies be connected to Chinese, and how can the embassy facilitate in that? And the other question was for that in the post-COVID scenario, the focus and demand has increased in healthcare. There was some initial discussion on the traditional medicine, not just plants, but also a healthcare center being established in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So how can the embassy support this endeavor moving forward? Badr. Unmute Karen Badr sir. Badr, the questions are from you. Badr, you can unmute yourself, please.
Yes. You gave me permission to unmute. Previously, I was not able to do it. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Basically, three things have been asked. Number one is the e-commerce. As it was mentioned that in China, the total trade that is taking through e-commerce platforms is almost $2 trillion. And there are three big players in China. One of the player, Alibaba, they have already entered in the Pakistani market. And now they are also going to move the international platform, that is AliExpress in Pakistan. So they are working on one scheme where they will be allowing the Pakistani exporters to place their platforms with the prices to be sold in China. At the moment, Pakistani entrepreneurs, they can't sell it directly, but they can do it through their trading partners, because in China, the platform for the local people sales is Taobao, and the Taobao turnover is also $700 to $800 billion. So what they can do, we have circulated in various chamber of commerce the procedure how to set up a shop on the Taobao and JD.com. A third player that has emerged in China is called Pinduoduo, PDD. So they are also, we are in discussion with them, and they will also be allowing the Pakistani, the importers from Pakistan to display their products. Similarly, as the ambassador mentioned, that we have set up some national pavilions. So those national pavilions can be contacted for sending the samples, and all those national pavilions are being run by Chinese entrepreneurs, and they also help to display the products from Pakistan to be sold in Chinese market. In addition to that, there is a collaboration like Orient Group. They are collaborating with a Pakistani platform that is called achhasauda.com. So the Pakistani sellers, they can display their products on that platform, and that platform is also accessible to the Chinese buyers as well. Similarly, there are Alipay, that is part of Alibaba. They are also seriously considering launching the payment platforms. They are also working on that. And similarly, JD.com is also entering in Pakistan through one of their local partners, and they will be setting up some logistics centers. And one of the function of those logistics centers would be to buy from Pakistan. So there are so many things that are happening between Chinese and Pakistan. And with the rising wages in China, there is a strong demand of Pakistani products, especially food and agro-related products, and similarly the handicrafts. So all those small and medium enterprises, they can, if some of the enterprises still they face some problem, they can visit us, they can contact us. My number is available on the embassy website, my email address, and I'll be directly engaging with them to help them out. The second area is the healthcare. So in the healthcare, there are various memorandum of understanding signed between the Chinese enterprises who are in the healthcare sector. And it is ranging from the setting up of traditional medical health services centers, and similarly, few of the companies like Shenyang Biotech, they are interested to set up a research lab in Pakistan on the stem cell research. Similarly, one of the companies that is called He Eye Vision, one of the largest in ophthalmology in China, they have also signed an MOU with the Pakistani enterprise, and now they are doing the screening, because in Pakistan, around 12% of the people, they are suffering from eye illnesses, and they'll be screening and they'll be providing services in Pakistan, and they'll be setting up hospitals and one of the eye university in Pakistan. So many things are happening. Similarly, all those Chinese enterprises, they are looking for the partners, because there is a requirement of, there are huge expenditure of the building setups and the construction that are involved. So Chinese enterprises, they are interested in capacity building. And if some of the hospitals and the clinics, they are interested to collaborate with the Chinese companies, then they can also approach us and we can connect them and facilitate them. Even KP Board of Investment, they can also be helpful. So we'll be providing that information to KP Board of Investment, and we can collaborate with them on this. Thank you.
This was very encouraging, and what you have stated about e-commerce, I think you can actually support us, because here we need that sort of hand-holding through which we can also, what the ambassador said earlier, I think we can talk about those webinars offline. And I think there's a huge scope of mining and tourism that will start and then gradually move towards other, as perhaps Deng Xiaoping said, crossing the river by touching each pebble. Before I invite Chuck, I would again like to play a short video showcasing our tourism potential. So it's a short video, so please enjoy the trip to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. I hope you enjoyed your short visit to the heavens in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. We, as a part of the government, I would like to invite each one of you to come and visit from far and abroad and enjoy the tourism potential of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. With this, I now invite my friend, Mr. Charles Schneider. He's been working with us closely, not just in the ease of doing business, but also in the investment strategy for next 5 years. And you know, he's been instrumental in almost all sectors after he joined IFC Pakistan as a senior private sector development in 2017. So all these years, he has been working right, left, and center, moving across all sectors, talking about various reforms that the government need, including working with the Board of Investment at federal government for their investment programs and how to actually leverage our natural endowment. So without further ado and speaking, since he's a friend, I'll keep speaking about his good attributes. So I limit myself and ask him to talk about Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, our potential. How can we attract investment, and what would be your kind words to any investor who's participating in this webinar?
Thank you very much, Hassan Saab, my good friend. I really appreciate the invite for today's discussion, and would like to say hello to everyone on the call today. You know, seeing the tourism video just a second ago, it reminds me of a visit I made to Gandhara, which is part of the Taxila. Gandhara is the metropolis, right? Taxila is one of the key areas, and it expands across Punjab and into KP province. And actually, some of the better sites were in KP, on the KP side, actually, and they were very less traveled, I would say, at that time. I've been probably the only person there at the time to visit those, and it was great, a privilege and honor to be able to see these amazing sites. And it just shows the potential of tourism. But I'd like to discuss a little bit today about the potential for investment for KP province, because I think that's really what we're here to discuss today. And I think, you know, we can put KP in the context of Pakistan as a whole, but we all know it's a very different place, right? Because, you know, many of the data that we hear are coming from maybe Punjab, Sindh, you know, which, you know, obviously have a lot more economic activity. But KP has its own attributes, its own potentialities. And this is what I'd like to discuss today. In the context of a definitely improving security environment for KP, there's no question about that. I've worked in several what we call fragile conflict locations, and my perception has always been, when I'm in these places, is that the public perception is usually 5 to 10 years in the past, and the current perception is just not getting out there, right? And that's why tourism helps, because usually investment follows tourism. We're not saying tourism investment, we're saying tourists who come see the place, and many times investors come for the first time as a tourist. They want to take a look around. So it's very important to get people to KP as tourists, as visitors, business travelers, whatnot. Investment will follow after that. And I'm referring to foreign direct investment when I say this. So when we discuss investment in KP, I think what's important is two things. One is the business enabling environment or investment climate. And we've talked a bit about that today. And really, it's great that we're able to work so closely with Hassan on areas such as doing business reform. So IFC and with some funding from the World Bank is providing technical assistance for the DB doing business reform cell that he mentioned during his opening remarks. And we're expecting a official launch of that DB cell sometime in March. And this is all linked also to a federal government-wide program called the Pakistan Regulatory Modernization Initiative, which is coordinated at the federal level. But as we all know, most regulation is implemented at the provincial level or even at the municipal level. So without a really whole of government approach, a federal and provincial approach, we won't see the reforms needed to attract investment. So we're really pleased to be able to support that activity that's led by Hassan and the KP Board of Investment and Trade. Now, another area, so you can look at an investment climate and say, yes, we're going to make things better for investors who come or who want to come. But the real question is, how do you get them to come? They may hear that things are getting better. They may get references, from other businesses that, yes, the investment climate is better. It's easier to operate than it used to be. But how the real proactive measure that has to be taken is investment promotion. And the way it's set up in Pakistan is that there's a federal board of investment kind of overseeing macro overall issues, maybe some large scale investments, but really the heavy lifting is done at the provincial levels. So Hassan's unit, it really has a big responsibility when it comes to outreach to investors. And it's not just to, there's a component of domestic investors, but, also to foreign investors. And he's obviously been doing that over the years, particularly with China, links that he has, but also with other countries. And we, so then you have to get to the next point. And I want to go over some of the key points in the investment promotion strategy that we're working on together that's still in draft form. But I think, the principles of that strategy are the types of things that we as IFC, promote worldwide when we work with clients on investment promotion. These are the kind of what we've learned from experience globally in this process. So first of all, the investment promotion strategy is really meant to be a guiding post or business plan for the Board of Investment itself. You can have your investment policies, which exist. You can have your industrial strategies, which exist. But the investment promotion strategy is really, how are you going to do the work? How are you going to get out there as if you're, a company in a way? Because, in most governments, and I think KP included, the boards of investment are much more private sector oriented agencies of the government than any others. So they have the pulse of the private sector. They tend to have better connections with the private sector, and they're the face in many ways, because many times an investor's first call in a country is to Hassan when they want to look at KP province, for example. And working together with the Federal Board of Investment, it's just a great way to really be a service provider for these investors, to provide them with everything they need to get in, to make the decision, come to the country or come to the location, because they're all looking at many locations at the same time, right? So what are the principles? So first of all, promotion strategy needs to be impact oriented, right? It's not about how many activities you have. It's really about how do you assess the success of a strategy. It's really about investment that's generated. And to do that, you need to have a targeted approach to investment. That's the second promotion strategy principle. You need a sector focus. And we've talked a lot about sectors today, right? And we've talked, people have mentioned different sectors. I just want to put up a slide that we're discussing now, and it may be a bit, I wouldn't say it's totally complete yet, but what I'd like to get across here is the point that, when you look at it, this type of thing, you look at it with data, right? And you look at it with an eye on where has there been experience of investment so far in a country and in KP province, and where are kind of comparable locations experiencing investment. So we've had back and forth with Hassan and his team about different priority sectors, and not everything is listed here. But I think what we've been able to look at and discover, I think, through this process is that there's potential for these sectors that are listed here. Many of them were mentioned already today. This puts the kind of figures behind it, like quarrying and minerals, for example. Look at the high number of domestic investors in this space, and we see some experience from the international community through a cement project from a UK investor worth 150 million. Hassan mentioned IT, and I think we're using the same data. $330 million of IT service exports actually came from KP. This is not a Pakistan data. This is from KP. So this is something where we see opportunity. We also see many textile mills and local textile mills, but we don't see necessarily foreign invested textile mills. What we've seen, and we've done how we do this is there's a database that we have in the World Bank Group that looks through over the many years and over all countries, which investment announcements that have been made, because it's often difficult to pinpoint foreign investment through state bank data, for example, to where it actually happens in the country or which projects are being invested in. So from this, we can, they glean through, all the different public data sources to really list up who's invested. We even know by name, company, where they've invested in a country, how much, and if possible, the kind of job creation that came through those. So we see, if you look at the two right-hand columns, that you have AP and then you have Pakistan. Now, to some extent, I think we can learn from Pakistan-wide FDI projects because we see some overlap, right? But what we don't see, we see overlap, for example, in agribusiness. We see overlap in quarrying, and I think, KP would have even a stronger competitive edge in that sector than probably the Pakistan as a whole. What we don't see is investment in IT, whereas we do see that at the national level. We see 59 projects in communication software and IT worth $8.8 billion. I think that takes into account some national types of investments like telecommunications, for example. But if we see such a good domestic base here, 330 million, well, this is an area we should be targeting, and we should be seeing if we can bring in some investment to KP in this space. And with improving infrastructure, IT infrastructure, for sure the roads, getting into Peshawar is no big deal nowadays. The road connections are excellent from Lahore, from Islamabad, and passing right by Rashkai, for example. Also, large-scale investments in natural resources. We see one investment already from UAE in the province. We see this up-and-coming area nationally as well, and this is seems to be an area of real good potential. So, I think this is where we start. We start with this kind of analysis to understand where the competitive advantage is, because otherwise, and I'm going to stop sharing now. What happens is it becomes difficult to focus, right? And what we really need to do with the limited resources we have in investment promotion is focus on where the high impact investors are, how we service them, because every investor is a single unit, a single organization with a few people that are making big decisions, and they're comparing locations. So we really need to take a strategic approach to servicing them. And going back to what else can KP-BOIT do? It's around the activities that are then very targeted. We've been going through a process with Hassan's team to look at targeted investment promotion. How do you identify real potential investors and target them? And that can happen through a roadshow, but typically roadshows it's like spreading the seed very wide. We want to spread the seed very narrowly to areas where we see that there's real opportunity, and where all the intensive efforts that need to be put into promoting an investment can take place, because they won't come automatically. They'll need a lot of servicing. They'll need a lot of information. They'll need facilitation support. All these things are things that are going to be really important. And so the more targeted, the more strategic, the better. And so that leads me to the fifth principle out of, I believe it's 7, yes, is treating strategic investors as if they're a project in themselves for KP-BOIT. You need a project management style approach to deal with strategic investors. And that means that you need systems. That's the sixth principle. You need systems. That means client relationship management systems, right? It's like any sales operation. You have to keep track of all the interactions. You have to know who the contacts are. You have to have a clear idea of what the follow-up is at every moment, who's supposed to do what. And that's what client relationship management is all about. Because it's work, and it's hard work to convince someone to make such a big decision to invest. And I would say, unfortunately for KP, it has a little bit extra work to do because of possible image issues, because of some natural, let's say, difficulties to invest there in terms of location and market proximity. But, there's an old saying to make your weaknesses your strength. And the other strengths are there. Low cost operation, land availability. It's actually not far from key markets if you look more broadly at what your market is, right? Afghanistan's next door, China's nearby. There are markets in the vicinity, and getting out to the Gulf countries, it isn't that much harder, and it's no farther than Lahore and Punjab, which has, people don't seem to talk about their disadvantages on location. So you need systematic operations. And finally, and this is the last principle, and you need strong and well-coordinated partnerships. And this is, as I mentioned earlier, and I think this is coming through today's theme, is that investment promotion is a whole of government activity. It's a whole of government activity because part of it is about regulatory issues and reform. Part of it's about getting information to investors when they need it, the time they need it. And part of it is being there, as the regulating ministry, for example, responsible for industry and mines, for example, there is a role to play in investment promotion, not just regulatory oversight, and that has to be done hand in hand with the KP Board of Investment and others who can support this. Now, there was a question about what can KP do to maybe make investment more attractive, and what can KP-BOIT do to advocate for this? Because today we heard discussion about PPPs and health, for example, transportation. These are both areas IFC is interested in, both from an area of support on the transactions of these PPPs, but also potentially for investment. Because at the end of the day, IFC is an investor. We invest in private sector. Even though we're part of the World Bank Group, IFC is a private sector arm of the World Bank Group. So that means we do investments as well as providing the kind of private sector technical assistance and advice I've been talking about. And our investments, which are different, say, from the World Bank, which are public sector, our investments are to private entities, and they are not guaranteed by government in any way. Our mandate is not to take government guarantees on investments. Our mandate is to make an investment that's, a very market-driven, bankable investment. So how to make those PPPs more bankable is to make sure that the projects themselves are sustainable, self-sustainable, to support the performance and the payment obligations of those projects. So any private developer, even through a bidding process, needs to be, comfortable that the entity that's tendering the project will also have, the project will be able to, pass on the revenues and make the costs bearable to the firm that actually wins it. And the tariffs and charges are also, effectively passed on to the end users to make the project bankable. A way to support PPPs that maybe don't have a full bankability or some partial support needed is through Viability Gap Fund. That would be something that the provincial government could support. That would provide, not only minimum, revenue guarantees, but could provide some upfront capital CapEx subsidies or ongoing operational subsidies. These viability gap funds are used frequently in certain types of PPPs that are not fully, cost recovery is not 100% guaranteed early on, may take longer than other sectors. Healthcare can be one, road traffic, toll roads, and that can be one. And I understand that, in the Sindh province, they have these kind of viability gap funding mechanism. I think it's something that KP could look at. Another area, one more area in PPPs is again, what kind of credit enhancement mechanisms could be provided to the project. That's not subsidy. That would be some kind of credit guarantee on the lending or the borrowing that the project actually needs. So again, these are just some advice. Now we heard other areas where there's potential. I think agribusiness is something that obviously KP has a lot of opportunity. It is somewhat dominated by small, medium enterprises, but I think there is potential for greater activity there, and bringing in some even foreign investment in this space. As we know, there are many foreign investors in the food space in Pakistan. It's not always a matter of bringing in a brand new investor. They could be in your country already, but you want them to add to their investment. You want them to grow their investment, and you want them to bring some investment to KP province. So it's not just starting from scratch. It's you have a base. So I think that's important. So again, with in agro-processing, again, I think it will be important for there to be industrial plots available in Rasha Kai or other economic zones, for these type of businesses, and that the documentation that they need and regulatory requirements are clear to them, and that things like environmental protection licenses, other NOCs that are needed, that there's clear information. And I think that's what zones can help with. Zones can help with the information. There could be a support on facilitation, but actually firms, as long as they know what they need to do, they can do it. And so, that's really, I think, some very specific comments, but there's plenty of opportunity in KP province. There's land, there's people, there's capital, and there's a good team on the ground to actually get this investment promotion off the ground. And I like, since we've had a lot of references to China today, and Hassan and I think have already used this one-liner many times with each other, but every 1,000-mile journey starts with a single step. Now, I think this single step was taken a long time ago. I mean, we're way past that. We're well along on the way. We're not at the 1,000-mile finish line yet, but there is a good base. And I just think, putting more resources behind on the promotion side can make more happen. And it pays for itself. Revenues that come in, the jobs that are created, the value added to the local population, to exports, it's there. So with that, I'd like to conclude and thank you very much for the opportunity to speak today, and forward to our continued cooperation and to being KP, enjoying the great hospitality that we always receive there very soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chuck. It was wonderful. I think your point highlighting about VGF and also about the kind of investment that could flow. We understand here, based on our interaction also and with other stakeholders, that KP provides good opportunity for not just investment markets, those who are market seekers, but also I think we have a lot of natural endowments. So probably those investors which are looking for resource could also come. And also we have very hardworking human resource, young and hardworking human resource. They just need a little bit of finesse and some niche to be added to what they do, especially in the labor-intensive industry. So thank you very much. I had kept Amjad Parvez Saab waiting for a little long time, but since he is a potential investor, I wanted him to hear all the talks and also all the recommendations. He is not just a successful entrepreneur in diverse private and public sector boards also. He is also a Pakistani who wants to bring change, who wants to actually bring investment to Pakistan. And since I'm very selfish, I would like him to bring investment to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. So, sir, based on what you've heard and also with your experience with Jumpstart and the other boards in United Kingdom, I would like you to please highlight the areas where we need to improve and also showcase and how can we develop the synergy and also networking with the enterprises in Europe and beyond, and also take advantage to what is happening across the globe. So over to you, sir.
Assalamu alaikum, Daud Saab, distinguished panelists and excellencies who've already done a commendable job in presenting the facts and the opportunities. So I will not actually go into what they've discovered, because obviously it's been quite a long time, but a very interesting discussion that has taken place. So far we've obviously listened to Moin Saab, who are our distinguished ambassador in China. We've also listened to respectable Kiyoshi, who's executive at the World Bank, and also to Salman Mehdi Saab, who's chairman of Pakistan Stock Exchange, and clearly Charles, who's a strategist in terms of how we get this work done. Well, I'm sat here in UK, where we're under our third lockdown. Unfortunately, we've not managed the COVID situation as good as China and as good as Pakistan, and we're paying the hefty price of that mismanagement. And on top of that, Daud Saab, we've got the double whammy of Brexit. But what that does, it gives us and Pakistan the opportunity where Salman Saab talked about, other countries like our neighbors and Bangladesh being under the influence of COVID. That has given our exporters the potential to open the doors and increase our market share in the exports, and thank God that has happened. So far we've listened to professional, academics, strategists, bankers, and people who are in the civil service. I want to, Daud Saab, give you a perspective from a business person and from overseas Pakistanis, and particularly from the UK perspective. There are 1.2 million overseas Pakistanis here in UK, and they've been here since the Second World War. My father's generation were the pioneers. They were the first generation, and then I am the second generation, and then we have the third generation, which are my children, and then our grandchildren. And as dual nationals, we are actually part of the very fabric of Europe and the developed economies. And that is something I totally understand the relationship that we have with China. And since the war on terror, what has happened, the shift in global dynamics in terms of the economic resurgence of the East and Asia, and our proximity and our historical links with China, we must, I applaud the work that you and a lot of other people have done to build that relationship. But there is a danger, a lot of the talk that I talk about, and as a businessman and as a buyer for my companies when I was operationally in charge, I'm reminded of a single rule, that you never have one supplier, because if you do, you are opening yourself to exploitation. I'm not saying that the Chinese will exploit the situation, because of I think we have an extremely good situation, but we've got to play strategically and tactfully and keep the other developed economies where nearly 9 million overseas Pakistanis are embedded. And already you heard from Salman Saab how during these challenging times, these overseas Pakistanis are actually helping to sustain the challenges that Pakistan currently faces. So I must also thank Daud Saab, your team, for putting together what I call a sensible, fit-for-purpose, practical industrial policy. You kindly sent me the draft copy of it. I've read it a couple of times, and there are key for those people who are participating and who are listening today. There are key 3 drivers that you have highlighted, which will be the key pillars to drive your aspirations for KP. And number 1 is access, it's a revival and rehabilitation of your stock of SMEs and other entrepreneurial entities. The second pillar that you're focusing on is growth, and number 3 is that you want to bring in competitiveness to raise the effectiveness and productivity of the companies that you have chosen. Now, we at Jumpstart Pakistan, I'm just going to give you a little bit of a background so you know what we are and what we're doing. The organization was launched in 2014. It has 30 chapters across the globe. We're working with 50 universities in Pakistan. We're in 20 cities. And earlier on, almost everybody was talking about roadshows. We have 2 aspects to Jumpstart Pakistan, key brands that actually promote Pakistan. One is Lift Pakistan and the other is Invest in Pakistan. To give you an example, in 2019, when we did the Lift Pakistan conferences, over 25,000 people in Lahore, Islamabad came to those, physically came to those events. And at the same year, when we did the Invest in Pakistan, unfortunately, then we couldn't do it physically. Also, just to give you the scope of the interest in KP and Pakistan, over 250,000 people showed interest to invest in Pakistan. So the enormity of the interest in Pakistan is absolutely brilliant. And I must congratulate you and your team in encapsulating a strategy that can actually take the aspirations of overseas Pakistanis and Pakistanis to create the prosperity and the abundance that we want for our Pakistanis. So where is it as entrepreneurs? We've heard a lot about the opportunities. We've heard a lot about the strategy that you've set up. I've just highlighted the 3 key pillars that you want to drive in order to realize your potential. What is it that we, the overseas Pakistanis, can do to help you and other provinces in Pakistan to realize our ambition? But before I actually go into the meat of what I think what is needed and what we've been doing for the last 6 or 7 years, I think it's pertinent to get one debate out of the way. My father's generations, I would say, were passive stakeholders in Pakistan. They came, they went overseas, and they were sending money to Pakistan primarily to make sure that their families were looked after. They were not really interested where you invested. Was it, Pakistan Stock Exchange? Were they properties? They were not really interested in that. But my generation and my children's generation, I think, are slightly different. Why are we slightly different? Daud Saab, the reason why we are different, and the reason why I say that we are genuinely about how we should transform Pakistan, is because our very identity and our dignity is actually attached with Pakistan. Yes, it's got to do everything with economics and business and revenues and how we have a return on an investment and how we use the material that we have to leverage growth. But I think fundamentally, the key thing is about ghairat, identity of knowing that we are Pakistanis, and everything that happens in Pakistan actually reflects on our identity. So that is something that is not being talked about. Sometimes people in Pakistan simply think that the overseas Pakistanis are interested in just getting a return on their investment. Yes, we are, but there's a bigger aspect to what we want to achieve. And we simply want to be equal stakeholders. We do not want, just because we send over more remittance than the combined export value of Pakistan's exports, doesn't mean that we're demanding something extraordinary or something special. We just want simply to be regarded as equal stakeholders and working together. So what can we offer? I think Charles and Suleiman and particularly Kiyoshi actually put something that touched the very nerve of why you're having difficulty in attracting investment. It is not that you haven't got the resources. It's not that because your ease of doing business. I think what has happened over the last 30 years, because of the Mr. Fix-It, come to Pakistan and you had to go see Mr. Fix-It, who would actually do that. That experience of the last 30 years meant that a lot of the overseas Pakistanis invested through informal channels. So they went to their cousin, they went to their nephew, they went to their uncle, and they had limited knowledge of the industrial strategy of Pakistan. And we ended up with a negative or a bad feeling in the mouth in terms of the investment journey that people had. So that perception, despite you doing good work and, Imran Khan, Prime Minister Imran Khan and his team doing good work, it's not really happening. The cascade of investments that needed to happen hasn't happened. So what is it? We at Jumpstart actually have taken soundings from entrepreneurs. And when I looked at your sector stuff that you talked about and what Charles talked about, actually our sectors reflect very much what your sectors are and what the sectors of Pakistan are. So there's tourism, there's health, there's all that kind of stuff is all there. So we're on one page in terms of where we think the competitiveness of Pakistan is, or where potentially the competitiveness is. So if the investors are wary or suspicious because of the perceptions that they have, I think in order for us to actually move forward, there are three things that your three pillars need in order to be successful. And number one, Daud Saab, is your companies need access to rich global markets. Now, not only are we blessed with the resources of human capital and minerals and etc., you have got 9 million people across the richest, most developed economies in the world who are embedded in those systems. They're trading there and they're thriving there. So what we've done at Jumpstart Pakistan is created silos of these sectors where we've picked 15 to 20% of the most disruptive companies in America, in Dubai, in New Zealand, in UK, in Manchester, in London, in Edinburgh, in Canada, and in those places. So we've already got those people who are genuinely about investing in Pakistan and in KP. Sir, what and I think everybody else needs from you, apart from the excellent industrial policy that you've done, we've created a model. So when I talk to people in my sphere, which is packaging, seafood, technology, financial services, health sector, there is one single complaint that comes resounding back from across the globe. And what is that? Is that Pakistan is not really very good at giving us value chain consistency and supply chain consistency. We've done it with the mangoes when we had the fruit fly problem. But in terms of that, sir, I would say to you as a businessman who wants to invest in Pakistan, who is already doing investing in Pakistan, that is the remit of the institutions. how we get kite marking, how we make sure that the product that leaves Pakistan is fit for purpose, i.e. fits the specification that the customer has said. Because the complaint that we get at Jumpstart Pakistan, the top number one, is that the first containers were perfect, the second container was okay, but the third container was abysmal. So I think that access to markets, we can guarantee you. And I'll tell you how much of a commitment, we're an action organization. So Hassan Saab, whilst we were talking, my CEO, Khurram Zubairi Saab, has flown from America. He's gone to KP. He's met Ziaullah Khan, Bangash Saab. They've done an MOU for Jumpstart Pakistan to start working on the 12 sectors that we've got and connect you with the overseas Pakistani businesses. And let me say something else, which I think people who are listening need to be aware, and particularly Sulman Mehdi Sab needs to be aware of. So this $22 billion that you're getting annually, it's loose change. It is actually money that overseas Pakistanis are sending back to maintain their coatis or the plot they've bought, or somebody's taken over their land and they've got a bit of a legal dispute. Your overseas Pakistani businesses actually are not investing in Pakistan. This Roshan digital account is actually ordinary Pakistanis, working class Pakistanis, middle class Pakistanis who've got savings in the West or in the developed economies where the interest rates are, sometimes zero, are moving their money. Now, most companies, Daud Saab, you will know, keep huge reserves. You just imagine if we could entice those reserves into Roshan digital account, right? That would be a game changer. So that's another suggestion for Sulman Mehdi Saab. And by the way, Daud Saab, Kishore talked about that the SMEs simply do not have access to finance. So the second part of what we can give you, apart from access to rich global markets, is funding. But this, Daud Saab, because of hesitation and misinformation about the environment in Pakistan, we feel in the next 3 years, right, we can do this in a way that the businesses don't have to bring the capital into Pakistan. Why? Because the growth is going to happen overseas. So imagine, Daud Saab, you have a technology company, I have a technology company. We can set up a company here in UK where you're a director, right, within 2 hours. It'll cost me £10 to set that company up. All of a sudden, a company in Lahore, Karachi or KP has an office in Bradford or Manchester in London. It looks really good on their website. And what it does is if you've got a product, whether it's hospital management, business optimization, AI, whatever it is, the actual growing of that business, right, is going to happen in euros. So what we do, in the short term, to give the customers that confidence, we say, you keep the growing as you fund the growth of that company. That way the company in Pakistan and the company in UK actually expands and takes the market share. And once the investor gets the confidence, we will then obviously encourage them into the special economic zones that you're talking about, not just in IT, but all the other sectors that we're talking about. Now, Sulman may have actually missed this point, but currently our head of finance is Harun Dusani Saab, who's based in California, is working with Sulman Mehdi Saab's team to set up the first SME stock exchange in the world. So in order to overcome the funding gap, so we've already got £15 million worth of commitment from funders to actually go. So we're currently talking to the UK Financial Conduct Authority to set this mechanism up where we have this global, where everybody was talking about the road shows that we need to have, right? We're currently doing that in the 30 chapters that we have across the globe, and we do that in Pakistan. So this is something that we've been doing for the last 6 years, and that's just not us. We've got Rashid Saab on air from Pakistan British Business Council. We've got British Pakistani Business Forum in London. We've also got UKPCCI. All those people. We're not a me organization. What we need to learn is cross collaboration and cross fertilization. And we will only move forward with that. Okay. Now, the third aspect of what you need to do in order to realize your potential is you need the developed entrepreneurial human capital. And you have that, sir, in the 9 million overseas Pakistanis across the globe. So if you have the funding, if you have the access to market, and you have the entrepreneurial human capital, we believe this can be done very, very quickly, because Pakistan simply hasn't got 10, 15 years. We're at a financial cliff's edge. So we've got to leapfrog and think out of the box. Now, what is the model that we need to adopt? Very quickly, So we have already set up what we called growth, innovation, and creativity hubs. So what we currently, over the last 6 years, have got people in different sectors, companies, overseas Pakistanis, who are connected with us. Sir, we need from you, not every Tom, Dick, and Harry. We need 15 to 20% of the most disruptive companies in each sector. You will know the Pareto effect rule is that in almost every sector, 20% of the companies account for 60% to 80% of the market share. If you give us those companies, we are currently doing that with the IT sector, with the tourism sector. We are already interviewing companies. What we do then, we put them through a rigorous boot camp, because there's no point in actually connecting those companies to global entrepreneurs if they're not fit for purpose, if they haven't got a right team, if they don't know what their value proposition is, they don't know whether they have a market and product fit, what is their pricing structures. So what we do is we do a full, complete SWOT analysis by our sector champions, who actually say, look, these are the things that you need to do. So that is something DEVTA, your educational, your universities, academia could actually create. We've got the model. We're already doing it. We're more than happy to share that. Once these companies are done and we know that they're capable, we will connect them in the first 3 years to the overseas Pakistani businesses. So they grow and the companies in Pakistan grow. So the second phase is where we want to build the ecosystem of enterprise. Daud Saab, yourself and I have talked about this, where we actually completely, from the early years in primary school right the way to universities, we need to start teaching entrepreneurialism, creativity, and innovation, because we need to create that funnel of entrepreneurialism and the 21st century thinking, which is about critical thinking. It's not just simply having degrees. Finally, what I would say to you, when we were talking about China and the developed economies, is research and development will play a pivotal role in actually us leapfrogging from where we are, where to go. Right? We've talked about the sectors of tourism, we've talked about health, we've talked about minerals, we've talked about gemstones. I would say to you, sir, that we need to ensure that our educational institutions, particularly the universities and higher education establishments, actually pull their socks up and raise their standards. Why? Because the companies, the big corporations are now looking to farm out their research and development. The research development in the 21st century is going to become a commodity which is outsourced. Now, if we could take a chunk of that research and development by improving our universities and innovation centers, what that does, it takes our human capital up, but it gives us that capital in terms of research and development, and it puts us in the 21st century technologies. So that's up. We at Jumpstart Pakistan have a simple motto. This cannot be done alone by Jumpstart Pakistan. As good as you are, sir, and as good as your team is, we need to work together. So I applaud everybody to actually take this motto that we have at Jumpstart Pakistan and keep it in your heart, which is stronger together in building a great team. And inshallah, we can do that if we are united. Thank you, Hassan Saab.
Thank you, sir. And you know, all your points have been noted, not just by me, but some of the other stakeholders who are participating. I have a few questions. One is for Kyoshi, but I'll start with you. There was a sort of statement followed by a question by Ms. Tuba and also by Muhammad Ali. This is, and I'll tailor these questions a bit and then ask you. This is regarding the importance and trend in increasing, which is increasing towards AI and robotics and the 4.0 technologies and industries. And also here, Tuba had mentioned about blockchain ecosystem. So the question to you, sir, Amjad Saab, is that how can Pakistan, you know, in the shortest possible time, you know, learn to embrace these technologies? And I know some of this was discussed and highlighted by you while you mentioned about our higher education institutions, and I'm part of that. And I totally understand that we do not encourage entrepreneurial skills in our curriculum, but surely we will be doing this, especially in those where I represent. But my question is to you, what can we do? And especially for KP, how can we create that linkage with companies in UK in terms of AI and robotics and blockchain?
Okay, that's a question that is almost asked in every webinar that I actually attend. And it's an excellent question and it must be asked. And there is, to be honest, there is quite an easy answer to that. Number one, we must adopt technology. So there's no escaping. But what I say to people is rather, you know, there's a lot of people who say, let's focus on one industry. We simply haven't got the time, Daud sir. What we need to do is we need to work on parallel fields, which Charles already has alluded to, which I've alluded to, is that we need sector champions. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it has to be bureaucrats or diplomats. It has to be led by entrepreneurs who are led by profit motive. Because unless and until we are led by the profit motive, there will not be any incentive. But how can we do it is the crucial question. And I'll give you my own personal experience of this. So one of our companies is a technology company, and I'll give you a bit of its history. So we were probably one of the first Pakistani Muslim companies. When 2012 Olympics were granted to London, we were the ones who actually played a dominant role in moving the Olympic movements to cloud computing. So we know what, so we're working with people like Dr. Martens, House of Fraser, Marks and Spencer, you name it, the world's top brands are working with us. Unfortunately, right, a lot of the development, which runs into hundreds of millions of pounds, not dollars, pounds, has to be done elsewhere. We have now got software engineers in Lahore, which we are training. So fundamentally, you have to find people in the first phase. Now there are phases. The first phase, like I said, is from today to the 3-year planning horizon. You actually get in touch with overseas Pakistani technology companies who are working in this field. I can assist that. There are a huge number of people just here, but in the Silicon Valley, there's an organization called Open. It's Pakistanis overseas in America who are involved in Silicon Valley, who've created this Open Pakistan, it's called, right? So we could put you in touch with them, and they're hugely advanced in terms of what they can do. But fundamentally, I think, trying to de-risk everything is not a recipe that I want. As a businessman, as an entrepreneur, why do I invest? I want that risk because I know the higher the risk, the greater the return is, right? So I think trying to mitigate too many risks is sometimes a recipe for disaster. So I hope I've answered that.
Yeah, brilliant, sir. And I think I will speak about this maybe tomorrow offline, and then So my question to Kiyoshi is that, not my question, but the question that has come for you, sir, is regarding how ADB can help Khyber Pakhtunkhwa especially to improve its SME sector, since the government is actually launching its SME policy. How can ADB support this, especially in terms of women participation in the SME sector, which traditionally has been low? So Kiyoshi, can you answer that?
Thank you. And also, I really appreciated Mr. Amjad's talk, and then it's quite enlightening. And the one thing I learned is Pakistan economy in general is so informal. So there's a lot of informal channel. And then we do not know the size of informality, but then some people said the informal economy is as the same size of the formal economy. So it represents there's a lots of informal activities that affects investment, that affects the private sector activities, because the informal sector will not follow the rules and regulations which the government imposes. And also they are not part of the tax issues, so it will not contribute as much to the public finance. And we have this view, and also in my presentation, there's the chart. It shows SME is the large part of the private sector activities, but the SME is a minority of access to finance. In this sense, ADB's support is to give access to finance to SME sectors. And then also the government and also the public sector has to provide to formalize those informal activities. And then maybe this is because of too restrictive tax policies, or maybe there's no infrastructure to formalize those the small entities like e-commerce. So ADB is supporting those rules and regulations to make sure that banking credits will go to those SMEs. And also we are supporting a payment system online. So those who do not have a banking account, but then they can pay those money. But then overall, I think it is important, both the private sector and the public sector, to establish the channel. The informal sector can be included in the formal economy. By this way, you will get the larger pies to get in the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Kiyoshi. Wonderful answer. I think we need to integrate Khyber Pakhtunkhwa SME sector with the national SME. We're doing a lot of work in that, and perhaps we need to have seminar, 1A on women specific, and also the other is to have a more sectoral approach. Amjad Sahab, I'll get to you, but there's a small question from Ms. Tuba again, from Salman Mehdi Saab, and she states that in India, blockchain-based financial services are being worked upon, and many Indian banks have started to implement the blockchain ecosystem within their banking system. But where in Pakistan, we are still debating its legalization. So she has asked a question from you that don't you think time is now to work on to avoid disruption to our existing and future business models, especially when it comes to the Pakistan Stock Exchange? Salman.
Yes, sorry, I just can't connect somehow my video. Just let me see. Okay. So yes, Tuba, it's a very relevant and a valid question. And very recently, you must have heard about the fact that we're having a seminar for the first time on digital cryptos and blockchain technology. So yes, as we have lagged behind, that's right, can't deny on that fact, but the realization is there. And this is the first formal session that we are having where SECP, State Bank, CDC, NCCPL and Stock Exchange all are participating. But yes, we are late for it. but the realization is there that, you know, this is the future and we really need to gear up on these lines.
And I think, Salman, leaders like yourself and also probably Amjad Pervez Sahab has a lot of eyes and ears here in the government, and say similarly Chuck and also Kayoshi can actually support this process and give their heads up to all the concern. But thank you very much. Last, Amjad Sahab, you had to say something before we end this seminar.
Daud Sahab, it's an interesting scenario that Khyber Sahab talked about, which is the informal economy. By some estimates, particularly by Deloitte's, it is estimated that upwards of probably 60% of Pakistan's SME economy is in the grey sector. So in the second phase that I talked about is where we create the ecosystem of enterprise. Currently, we have a policy of giving subsidies carte blanche to every Tom, Dick and Harry. Our approach is that we actually give business support, and that would include the systems, hardware and software, to those companies who actually register and who get the business support. And the subsidy regime has to be not forever. Some sectors have been now getting subsidies for over 20 years, Daud Sahab, and in terms of their performance and in terms of their competitiveness, I'm not sure whether they're fit for purpose. So I think apart from giving them the technology to optimize their business, that will make them apparent and move them out of the informal economy and also allow us to tax them, right? It also allows them to globalize through, we're now talking about AI, Internet of Things. We've now got 5G and 6G coming around the corner. What we don't want to do is miss the industrial revolution, the computer revolution, and miss the fourth revolution. So that is something that the government has to enforce about. So before you can even trade, you have to adopt technology, which would be given as a subsidy to companies. So that was my point that I wanted to make.
Brilliant, sir, and point well taken. I've written about it, and I keep speaking about this here in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and at the federal government level and also in academia, that by the time CPEC would be almost completed in 2030, China would have 6G, which is about 1,000 times faster than what we have right now here in the form of 4G. We are also working on standardization of this service. Sometimes 4G are different for different telecom and companies. So I think I cannot thank each one of the participants, the speakers, enough in what they've contributed to us. This is like, some of it was like music and some of it was like us to really gear up, change the way that we do business and perhaps improve. I would make this a series of events, perhaps having similar ones each month so that we can have, but the participation by academia and the business community was there. We restricted participation on Zoom, but we went live and there were a lot of interest and questions asked, but limited because of time. So as a return, since it's a webinar, I cannot present you with a logo or also a crest or a shield. But all I can do is present to you a small video which would be soothing for you, for your eyes, and perhaps bring you to Khyber Pakhtunkhwa sooner than you had planned. So with this, thank you, ladies and gentlemen. It was great, being with you, working with you, and trust me, all your recommendations and the questions are being well taken. I've written them down. My table is now almost filled with all those recommendations. And we will make a policy document out of this and get back to the speakers, and perhaps more of this will follow. So grateful. Thank you. Shukriya. Good night, good evening, good morning, whatever is in your respective place, and enjoy Sawat, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you very much.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, have a good evening of whatever is left of it. Thank you so much, and please come and invest in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, the land of growing opportunities.